Okay, welcome to the third episode of the AMT podcast. And today I'm going to take you through my journey so far as a sports trader. I want to thank last week's listeners, and a couple people reached out saying they want to hear my story. So I'll do my best to break it down. Now, I've written about it in the past on my blog. I think it was my first blog post, but telling it's probably a little bit easier for me to go into some depth. So this feels really weird having to talk to myself and telling myself about the journey. So do remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, so I know I'm not talking to myself. And just let me know what you guys think. Okay, let's get to it. So this is probably, I think I'm starting my 6th year as a full-time sports trader, around about that. I kind of dabbled with it at uni, but never dived into it full-time till around 5-6 years ago. So at uni, I studied investment and financial risk management. It was quite a math-heavy degree, and my degree was tailored for investment banking. So whilst I enjoyed my degree and my time at uni, I already felt like working for someone else or some big corporation just wasn't for me. And this wasn't to be some rebel or go against the system or anything. It's just the way I've always been naturally inclined. You know, a 9-to-5 just wasn't for me. I always wanted to do something by myself. I don't want to be just another cog in a wheel. I don't want to be part of some corporate machine where your value's based on an hourly wage. And more importantly than anything else, I don't want to spend the majority of my day traveling back and forth from a job that I absolutely hated. I really valued my freedom. So whilst I was at uni, I didn't enjoy my degree, like I said, though at the back of my mind, I just knew that I wasn't going to work for anyone. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Given all that, I kind of drifted, I guess, through my studies. Now, I've always been a natural academic to an extent. I'm the type of person to leave all my studying till the final week or two before an exam, before I finally knuckle down. Now, I hated lectures, and I know I'm not alone in this. I cannot sit there in a room with 100 students for 3 hours with some doctor with 5 degrees who hasn't made a penny from the markets and is lecturing me on game theory for 3 hours. Especially when it's at 9 in the morning after a night out. Just not for me. Now with hindsight, I really feel like the way uni was set up, there were so many distractions. It definitely wasn't the conducive environment for studying. Now I get it, social life and networking is a big part of the experience, but every day there was a party. There were flyers all over the student unions, student halls, and when you're in your late teens, early 20s, it's really hard to fight temptation, especially when you're in a crowd that's happy to indulge in that. Now, I don't regret it. You know, I definitely had my fair share of fun, and it was a great time. And I really feel like it's a good thing to get out your system when you're in your late teens, early 20s, mid 20s. The last thing you want to do is have that kind of energy bottled up when you're in your 30s, 40s, and you're still going hard. You know, you really want to move on to other things when you get to that sort of age. So I'm glad I got it out of my system. But unfortunately, you know, you meet a lot of guys, and you know, you end up making a lot of friends, so to speak. And unfortunately, some of my peers took it a little far, and they started experimenting with hard drugs. I saw it so many times. So I had to cut a lot of people out along the way. The thing is, with my university and the circles I was in, there was a lot of guys from private schools and grammar schools where it was just such a pressure-based environment. You know, they just had it rammed down their throats every day. You got to study. You got to get the best grades. And, you know, a lot of these guys, they kind of saw uni as a release of some sort. You know, they got away from their parents and their old teachers. And, yeah, they just went crazy with it, with that freedom. They just couldn't handle it. Now, when I got to uni, the kind of way I grew up, when I went to sixth form and college, I went to, you know, a very average school, probably below average to an extent, where not even my teachers came into half the lecture. So I ended up having to teach myself a lot. And like I said, I would say I'm sort of a natural academic. I pick up things, you know, fairly quickly. I had a maths tutor who literally, he was so good. He just laid everything on a paper for me. He just made everything so easy for me. That's why I got an A in maths at A level. I was 1 mark off A star. Economics, I had no teacher, taught myself. I got an A star in that. And I got a B in math, in history. So I done economics, history and maths, and I cruised relatively, so to speak, through it. And my maths tutor, by the way, he's actually one of my good friends now, who I'm going to bring on the podcast soon. And a lot of these private school kids, their parents are paying like 10, 15,000 a year. And we all got similar grades and end up at the same uni. So I've never really looked at going to private school or grammar school as some sort of advantage. Maybe it is because of the connections you make. And that's something I might talk about in the future. But generally speaking, we all end up in the same boat doing the same degree. So, if you're a natural academic and if you're, you can get the grades by yourself, there's really no need for that extra pressure during grammar school. And especially when I see what it led to and what it did to people when they got to uni. But without meaning to digress, the point I'm making is that going from sixth form to uni, like I said, I studied economics, maths, history. So I had some sort of idea as to what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to get involved in the financial markets. I just had no idea what exactly I was going to do and how I was going to go about getting into it. Now, once I don't live with regrets, the only one thing I really feel like I didn't take advantages of was the networking opportunities that were granted to me, especially given that I went to quite a prestigious business school in London. I mean, we had Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, UBS, Credit Suisse, and countless other firms from the city regularly doing networking events at my school. And so many of my colleagues would go and make connections, and it just kind of felt like they knew what they wanted out of it. I just didn't, because honestly, if there was something that remotely tickled my fancy, I would have done it. And I went to some of these events and I was just so bored. Instead of networking and mingling, with these VPs and these front office workers, I was so bored. I ended up talking to some girls, and I think at one or two of these events, I got their numbers. So there was just a real lack of passion for anything. And again, during second year, that's supposed to be the time when students are applying for internships and spending their summers or gap years working in the industry of their choice. Instead, I was busy having fun, going gym, going golf. I was playing golf with the uni team, and I was actually the standout player. We got to travel up and down southeast England playing matches at great courses. So I had so much fun. And when I wasn't doing that, I was probably in Nottingham, Birmingham, Manchester, every other weekend partying. So looking back, I don't even fully appreciate how much energy I had. I mean, if I go out now, I'm knocked out rest of the week. But back then I was clubbing 2-3 times a week, training 5 days a week, and playing golf to county level. So at uni, I think during second year, one of my friends who I used to hang out with, I went to his flat. And one of his flatmates, who was supposedly on my course, though I'd never seen him, which turns out to be for good reason, was busy lodged up in his flat making money, betting on cricket and snooker. So I probed him on how that was possible. I mean, as far as I was concerned, it's a losing game in the long run. You win X amount against the bookies and that's your account closed. Only he told me that he was trading the odds on a betting exchange, similar to how you could buy and sell currencies on a stock exchange. So I had no idea such a thing existed, and I never really saw the guy again. But I looked into it, and it quickly dawned upon me that you could actually make money consistently from gambling or trading the odds on sport. So this was like, in my whole 20 years of life, this was like my first light bulb moment where I actually found something that would be fun, that I could do for a living. Now I say fun, but little did I know how much hardship I would endure along the way when I actually chose that as a career. But this is where things got a little bit crazy, because I think I met another guy towards the end of the second year. And this was a guy who I got kind of close with. I've kind of lost touch with him now, but he was a great friend. And this guy told me he used to love a punt and he loves a gamble, and he had a system where he lays the draw on football. And of course, he meant through this betting exchange. So I had never heard of a betting exchange throughout my life. Now, in my second year of uni alone, in the space of a few months, I got introduced to the exchange by one guy and make friends with another guy who shows me how to lay games. So just like London buses, they all come lining up at once. So he shows me this YouTube video of some guy laying the draw on football games, and literally, he was just sitting back and collecting his profits after each game. And I was going crazy thinking, this is going to make me a millionaire. And, all sorts of wild thoughts started running through my mind. So now I actually started going to uni, to the library, not to study, but to trade games, watching football. So I guess you could say I was studying, but while everyone was tearing through books, I was trading football. Now, my mate, he showed me how to trade. I can't remember exactly, but they were like low-level, second division, Brazilian, Chilean games where every game was like a goal fest, like 5-2, 4-0, 3-0. The centre-backs were doing Zidane roulettes and Rabonas and whatnot. It was just a joke. So I was just laying away, collecting money. Now, bearing in mind, these games were not liquid at all. The markets were super thin. So I'm just taking whatever price is available to lay. And at that time, I had no appreciation for market depth or liquidity. And that buzz when you get when a goal goes in and you collect your profits, there's nothing in the world that could beat that. And I mean, I was laying for like no more than a $5 at time. That's all I could afford, but just a buzz of winning. And eventually it all came crashing down. As you probably guessed, I lost whatever I made. But I wasn't too bothered. I was just happy realizing that I've actually found something that's fun. And if I dedicate time to finding a strategy, an edge, then I could actually make money off the long run. And reading through forums, I read about guys who were making six figures as doing this as a line of work. They were able to buy a house. So, it kind of snowballed from there. I was starting to make up my mind that, this is something I can see myself doing for a living and I don't have to work for anyone. But when I got to third year of uni, the exchange betting thing kind of went on the back burner, as third year was super hectic at uni. I was working flat out just to make up for all the lost marks in the first year. And long story short, I got by just by the skin of my teeth, and I probably aged 5 years in the process. So it was super stressful, my final year. Like I said before, I like leaving things last minute. I can only work when there's pressure. And it was just, it all caught up with me. It was not a good strategy to do in my final year, which is the most heavily weighted year. And I literally just about got by, so I was so lucky. And yeah, after third year, I guess, though I was in a kind of weird situation where I had no job lined up and nothing really to fall back on. So I was applying aimlessly for jobs and landed an internship at a stock brokerage. Now, it wasn't until I got there and worked there that I realized I've got to work for myself. This is the most soul-destroying job imaginable. Now, I was a junior broker, which is just a fancy dressed-up term for cold caller, where you're given a bunch of junk leads, getting cursed at, getting hung up on, pitching FTSE 250 stocks that I'd never heard of. So I stuck it out at this place for probably around 8 weeks, which felt like 8 months. And during that time, I decided quickly that there's no way I'm going to live like this. I'm getting out of here as soon as possible by any means necessary. So while I was working, while I was at work, getting the phone slammed down on me, between calls, I was looking at internships. I was looking at investment banking firms with trading divisions, as I had the credentials on paper. The only thing missing was most of these firms didn't really allow applicants who hadn't had prior work experience, which of course I didn't, since I didn't bother applying for any internships while I was at uni. So because I had no experience, though I had the credentials on paper, I couldn't really get a place at any of these jobs. So the next best option for me was to apply for proprietary trading firms. So these are firms that either financially back traders, or you pay a desk fee and get access to their software, live feeds, brokerages, etc. So I had an interview with a couple firms, and they made me do some quick mental arithmetic tests, which I aced. Then they asked me if I could bet on sport or trade horses or played poker. And by this point, I kind of felt like everyone knew what the exchanges were, and this was some sort of Truman Show where I was the only one that didn't hear about it till so late on. So yeah, I told them I dabbled in it and I wasn't profitable, but promised, I'd be a quick learner. I was passionate about trading. So both these firms emailed me with the same response, and they basically said, look, we'd be happy to take you on, but you have to fund your own account for a minimum of 10K. Now, I didn't have a penny to scratch my ass with, needless to say, so I had to turn those jobs down, and there was really no mentorship programs out there available. There was one firm in London. I think they're called, what are they called? They changed name. They were called Schneider Capital or something. They changed their name to Marex Spectron, which is a famous energy and commodity derivatives brokerage in London, which had a trading division. And I missed the boat by literally a couple of months, because every year they were offering mentorship programs to budding traders where they take on X amount of students, say 50 to 100 students through their trading program. And week by week, they'd weed out the weakest. And the handful of guys, or the couple of guys that made it to the end, they'll financially back them to become traders. So I was going through chat rooms and finding out a lot of these guys went on to make 6 figures within a few years. Some of them even 6-7 figures. And they closed their whole mentorship program literally a couple of months before I applied. So I was gutted. And they offer, like I said, that desk fee sort of thing, where you either fund your own account and you pay just to use their facilities. But of course, I had nowhere near that kind of money. And yeah, I mean, upon doing, research, I found out that trading the financial markets isn't really a place to start if you have little to no funds, because, the desk fees you pay, the brokerage fees, the trading fees, it's just, it gets really expensive. And I guess, things that kind of come full circle at this point. And I guess sports trading was the only real way out, because when it comes to sports trading, you can fund your account with like 10 quid. There's no real overhead costs. Leasing the trading software that I pay for, I use a Geek's Toy, costs like a tenner a month, if that. And you don't really have to pay for a live feed unless you get Racing UK. Betfair give you a live feed, so there's really no overhead costs, and you can start with a minimal amount of money, £10, £20, and you can start trading. I guess on the financial markets, to an extent, you can do that on spread betting and CFDs, but if you're actually buying and selling, big positions, you got to pay broker fees, desk fees. You got to pay so many fees on top of fees. It just really eats into your profits, and you really need a good amount of money, at least 5 figures, before you start trading. And that's why a lot of these firms ask for 10K minimum. So yeah, things had come full circle. I kind of decided, if I'm to get into trading, then sports trading is going to be the way forward. My only issue at this point was justifying to parents how I'm going to leave a job to stay at home and watch football for a living. Anyway, I spent my downtime YouTubing, Googling sports trading, and I stumbled upon a guy called Con Berry, who today is one of the OGs of sports trading. This guy's one of the dons of sports trading. I'm guessing he was probably one of the first guys on YouTube, and he had a lot of content out there for dummies like me. So I remember a video of him scalping, I think like £18 out of a handicap race in like 5 minutes before the off. And I remember thinking, this is the coolest thing ever. This guy has just made £18 in 5 minutes. If I can do this, I've made it. So I watched the video like over and over again, and it didn't get any easier. I tried doing it myself with no success, and to the naked eye, it looks like you're just sitting there either side of the price waiting to get matched. But there's actually a lot of nuanced skill involved with regards to timing, staking, reading the charts. All these things you need to be aware of if you're to perfect your execution and make money off it, which I teach in my video pack on my site. I know, shameless plug. I'm sorry, it's the only time, but yeah. Anyway, so I loaded up my bankroll with like, I think 400 quid or 500 quid, and I blew it, as you can imagine. So I gave it another shot, loaded up another 400 or 500 quid. I can't remember exactly. when you're doing it at the time, you don't imagine that you're going to be telling this story on a podcast in the future. So I think it was around that much money, but I can't remember exactly. But I'm pretty sure I remember loading up a second time for the same amount of money. And yeah, I blew it again. So, the worst thing you can do if you're not profitable. And I know hindsight's a wonderful thing and it may seem like common sense now, but the one thing you don't do if you're not profitable is start with money you can't afford to lose, which is exactly what I did. So now I'm worse off than I started, and I can't afford to buy, Khan's video pack or ebook. So I had no way of learning the right way. Anyway, I loaded up another bank. This was kind of probably the final time. At least I said that to myself. But this time, I figured out a staking plan. Before, I was just experimenting with strategies, and the only reason why I gave it a second go and a third go is because I knew I was getting closer. I was getting warmer. So, I was scalping and swing trading on horse racing. And this time, like I said, I had a staking plan. So I gave it another shot. So this time I loaded up, I think just like 100 quid and just used the minimal stakes. And long story short, I managed to run it up to like 2 or 3 grand. And that's where my trading journey really took off. So I'd probably say all in, it took me around 4 months of turning profitable. Now, bear in mind, I was watching every single race every single day. And I was watching football, trying to streamline that old lay the draw strategy, and watching tennis and trading horse racing, greyhound racing. So I was literally working flat out. I had no schedule, no timetable. I didn't know what a feature race was, that you could make more money on a Saturday. I was treating Saturday like a Sunday, like a Monday. Every day was the same to me. And yeah, like I said, all this stuff seems common sense now, but I didn't know anything at the time. And you kind of have to go through that cycle as a trader. When you're starting out on your journey, you have no idea what you're doing and what's going to be profitable. So you just trade everything, and then you kind of chip away. This works, that doesn't work. Let's try this. Let's not try that. Let's take this out. Let's put this in. So now I'm in a place where, I have a solid schedule and I know exactly where I make the most money. But yeah, it took me probably 4 months to get profitable in the horse racing. Now, just because I say profitable, it doesn't mean everything was up from there. Success isn't linear. It doesn't work like that. There were so many times where I still blew the bank and then had to come back and had stupid down months or whatever. But I was always profitable They were losing months, of course, but never ever had a losing year. So after my second year, I guess, I kind of accidentally stumbled upon cricket, especially Test cricket. Now, I don't know anyone that talks about Test cricket, cares about Test cricket, and Test matches were rarely aired on Sky Sports unless it's in England. But this was around Christmas time, I still remember, and I think it was an Australia game. It was probably the 4th day, and there was around £30 million matched. So I opened it up on the price ladder, and I had never seen a market so liquid and a market that moves so slowly. So I thought, you know what, I want a piece of this. If I could just figure out how, why, and when these prices move, this could be a nice little earner too. So I dedicated a lot of time to understanding the game from scratch, and it really didn't take me long to turning profitable on cricket as well. The only problem was the highly unsocial hours during the winter, where games are played in either the subcontinent or Australia or New Zealand. So, however, it soon turned out to be a blessing in disguise, since the flat season on the racing, kind of finishes by then, and the national hunt racing is on during the winter, which is absolutely no good for me. Markets are super thin. There's no prize money on offer, and the races are so long. My kind of niche is 5 furlong to 1 mile races. So, as I said earlier, it took me a few years to really fine tune my schedule, where I would focus on race trading from March till September. And October is kind of my down month, October, November, and then December, January, I travel abroad so I can focus on Test cricket. So that's really how my journey went as a raw novice. There was so much I didn't know. I went from working flat out, trading anything and everything, using every strategy, making every mistake, no bankroll management, no risk management, but just good old grit. And a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and money, and just with sheer persistence. slowly but surely, I managed to figure out what works, what doesn't, ditching new strategies, going back to old strategies, chopping and changing things, establishing what my risk tolerance is, what markets suit my trading style. And over the years, I just got more and more efficient. The only downside I would say to going about doing things on your own, however, is, the only problem is that, you form really bad habits. That's the only problem. There's no one to overlook you. So to this day, that's what's really hindered my progress and slowed down my progress. I've only now just about managed to shake off those bad habits. It's been so hard. It's been a constant battle against myself. And that's what you'll find as a trader. You're often your own worst enemy. There's no one out there holding you back. Trading really drives home an important lesson, and that is, you're 100% responsible for your own success. You're 100% accountable. There's no one else to blame when things go wrong. When you work for someone else or when you're in a corporate environment, there's a lot of politics, a lot of back scratching and luck to an extent involved. Whereas in this line of work, you get found out. There's nobody to blame but yourself. You can't look back on your career as a trader and say, you know what, if I got that big streak, if I got that break, or if I got picked for this, or if that went my way, things would have worked out. It's all BS. Those that make it, made it happen. You don't get what you want, you get what you create. So if you have a system that works and you have the discipline to execute that strategy, you're going to make a lot of money. You can't look back and say, oh, I worked so hard, things just didn't work out. Yeah, you got to work hard in the beginning, but then you got to work smart. You have to do what works. And the faster you can find something that works and have the discipline to execute it, you're going to make money. I have systems that work and have made me money for years. The only things that held me back are my laziness. Laziness is like an illness of some sort. It's something I've always battled with. Some days or some weeks I'll be absolutely regimented and then I'll relapse. I'll get arrogant, I'll get cocky, and I'll go back to my old sloppy ways and pay the price. And that's the thing about the markets. The markets have absolutely zero emotion. You make a trade, you lose money. It's as simple as that, and it's nothing personal. And, with my journey, even though I came out on the right side, I made it a lot harder for myself than it had to be. And it really didn't have to be that hard. There were so many times where I would double down in a losing position, hoping the market would bounce back up a few ticks so I could break even. And it just goes further against me. Or there were other times where the market did eventually bounce back, but then I get greedy trying to make more money and end up losing the lot. Or there were times where I tried to trade markets consecutively, back to back, even though I was exhausted and already had a good day, and then go and lose all the money. Or there were other times where I had a bad day and tried to trade markets I had no business trading and lost even more money. So I've made every mistake in the book. And if I could tally up the amount of cash I've thrown away due to sheer stubbornness and laziness, it's probably well in excess of 100K. Like I said, things were only as hard as I made it. But the only thing that I pride myself in is the fact that I never, ever, ever gave in. There were times when I was tempted, so many times in fact, but I always knew how close I was to making it. And I'd shown myself so many signs that I have what it takes. Now, what you got to bear in mind is that, we're going to split hairs here. There is a big difference between never giving in and having grit and just being plain stubborn and stupid. There's a huge difference between flogging a dead horse and hoping something finally takes off despite showing absolutely no sign of progress. And that's just sheer stupidity. There's nothing brave and noble about wasting your time. If something is absolutely not working out, there has to be a time. You have to determine a time and place where you have to finally cut your losses, decide this isn't working out and move on. And that's totally fine. It's okay to admit you were wrong and try something else. In fact, it's a good thing because you've just found a way that doesn't work. What I'm trying to say is if trading isn't for you, if you're showing absolutely no signs of progress after X amount of time, that's absolutely fine. Not everyone's going to make money trading. It's not for everyone. Everyone's temperament is different. Everyone is built different. But if you know in your heart that you can do something and it's within your grasp, and you know what that is, you should go for it, hammer and tong, like I did. Now, whilst I'm profitable, I haven't done anything special. I'm not even in the 1%, but I know it's very attainable, and I know in my heart I'll get there, and I'm a lot closer than I've ever been. I finally started to shake off those nasty, deeply entrenched habits, bad habits that I had that hindered my progress for so long. And I have the signs to show for it. The last couple of months, I've had some sensational results compared to last year, and I haven't even worked the same hours. I've just been working smarter, making key decisions to skip events, zoning in at the right time, and scaling up my positions when the time calls for it. So I've really shown myself that achieving consistent 5-figure months or thereabout is well within my grasp. So the point of me sharing my journey so far is to let you know that in life, once you find something that you know you want to do, and only you know in your heart of hearts what that is, if it's something you want, go for it. Go all out and don't look back. I've never looked back once and regretted it. Though it's been tough, a lot tougher than it should have been, like I said, which was all down to me. But this is something I want to do. I absolutely love trading. I started as a raw novice, and most people do. And when you do, you have to work flat out because you're trying to figure out what works, what suits your trading style, risk tolerance, etc., etc. And if you ever are in a position where you can find a mentor, then make sure you take advantage of that opportunity because it's going to speed up your progress. A mentor won't guarantee results, but they'll show you what works. And it's often easier for others to point out your errors than for you to do so yourself. The reason why it's so hard for people to be self-critical and analyze themselves is because of their ego gets in the way. It's so important to have a mentor and surround yourself with people who are going to keep you honest. And in my opinion, that's the fastest way to succeed. And that's a topic I want to talk about in a future podcast on why the direction you take in life, whether you know it or not, is largely determined by the people you surround yourself with. And that's why it's so important to be consciously aware of the people, you keep around you, whether that be friends or family. You don't want to be surrounded by yes men who are just going to blow smoke up your ass all the time. You want people who are going to keep you grounded, who are going to be honest with you. Again, without going off the tangent with regards to trading, if you can find a mentor who's going to keep you honest, who's going to, analyze you and see your results and help you improve, it's just going to make your learning curve so much shorter. Whereas you trying to correct things yourselves, often your ego comes in the way or your stubbornness gets in the way, as was the case with me. Me getting to where I am took an awful lot longer than it did because of my ego and because of my stubbornness. But I hope this episode's given you a deeper, more insightful look as to how I am and where I am. And hopefully it's given some people hope and a real life understanding of what to expect if you want to follow this career as a full-time trader. Once again, I'm nothing special. I would say talent has nothing to do with me getting to the level I'm now at. It was just pure determination and grit. All in, to this day, I'm probably around 150 grand up in profits, gross, by the way. I've also made some smart investments in crypto, which generated some pretty neat returns, only for me to go and blow it betting on the futures market, but that's a video for another day. But, we're always learning. The day you think you know it all is the day you stop progressing. And in fact, it's the day you go backwards. Because if you start acting cocky and arrogant when it comes to the market doesn't care about your emotions. You will get humbled. There are no doubt far more talented traders out there than me who are far more natural risk takers. And there are certainly those who hit the ground running and made a lot of money very quickly. But it's so important not to get hung up or caught up on how others are doing. Other people's stories are only there to give you perspective. Everyone, even though we all started from the beginning, at least on paper, everyone has different talent, different ambitions, different capabilities, different drive. We're all dealt a different hand in life, and you got to play the hand you're dealt with. There's no point looking at someone else's. Some people only need to put in 1 hour a day to succeed. Others have got to put in 8 hours. But so fucking what? Just get to work. Whatever it takes. Just shut up and do it. You know, for the first time recently, I've had the privilege of meeting another trader through Twitter. And this guy is, you know, as far as I'm aware, he's one of the best traders in the UK. Way, way, way better than me. Levels above me. This guy makes much more money than me. And, you know, he's quite a laid back guy. He doesn't really work that many hours, but he still makes way more money than me. And he serves as a great inspiration to me. Now, I'm not looking at him jealous thinking, wow, you know, he makes a lot more money than me. He seems to do it easier than me. I just think to myself, what's it going to take for me to get to that level? And that's how you got to approach things. If you ever meet someone that's better than you, ask yourself, what do I have to do to get there? The first thing you shouldn't be saying to yourself is, oh, he only works a few hours. He's lucky, or he's more talented than me. Your talent is a metric which you can't measure. It's not something which you can quantify. So just don't worry about it, whether you got talent or not. Just ask yourself, what do I have to do that's going to take me to where I say I want to go? So like I said, you know, I'm in a place now where I'm in touching distance of having my breakout years, and there's not an ounce of doubt. You know, I just know I'm due any minute now. And this has come from a long journey of just hard work and belief. I haven't done anything special thus far, even though I'm profitable. I'm not yet in the 1%. I think, you know, on paper, once you pass 250k in lifetime profits, you're considered in the 1%. But even when I get to that 1%, so to speak, you know, I'm probably in at the low end. There are so many guys out there who are way better than me, and a lot of guys who you'll never hear about. You know, and that's my dream. You know, I just want to be the best. You know, whatever it takes, whether it comes next year or whether it comes in 10 years. Most important thing is you enjoy the process and enjoy the journey. The biggest mistake is people think that they're going to be happy when they finally think they get there to that goal. You got to smell the roses along the way. Enjoy the journey. And when it happens, it happens. You don't know when you're going to have that break. You could be so close. Just never, ever give in and work smart. Don't be a donkey doing the same thing day in, day out, making the same old mistakes and never learning from it. This is where I went wrong for such a long time. I was making the same mistakes over and over, and I didn't know it at the time, but all I was doing was making those bad habits just deeply entrenched, and it just becomes harder to get out of. So like I said, work hard, never give in, and always be self-critical and analyze. And if you can find a mentor, or if you can find guys better than you doing what you're doing, hang on to those guys, find out what they're doing. But yeah, you know, hopefully, you know, my journey so far in this podcast has inspired you, I guess. Inspired you, enlightened you, and given you an earnest look at my journey. And I'll definitely be, you know, updating you guys in the future as to where I am and where I'm going. But 2022, this is going to be my year. This is going to be my biggest year, and I've got absolutely no doubt about that. Though I document, you know, my trades, I've uploaded so many individual, daily, weekly, monthly, 3-month profit and losses. They're going to pale in comparison to how well I'm going to do this year. My time is now. And I really look forward to sharing this journey with you guys. So yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. But if you did make it to the end, thank you. You know the drill. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I do read and reply to comments. And yeah, you know, I hope this sounds better in person as opposed to reading on my blog about my journey. But I'll definitely do another part to this at some time in the future. So until then, I'll speak to you guys soon. Till next time. Thanks for listening. See you soon. Bye.